The World War II Jeep was quite unique in its wheel configuration in that it was equipped with what was known as a combat wheel. An example of which we have here, the combat wheel can be identified by the 8 bolts inside the wheel rim itself. Those bolts had nuts on the rear of the wheel which allowed the combat wheel to be disassembled in this fashion in the field without the use of special tools and tire changers. While this was probably quite handy during the war, it does bring up some safety concerns today with an old rusty wheel. A wheel of this quality here, you'll notice there's lug nuts that are actually torn loose in the area of the lug holes. There's considerable amount of rust involved in this wheel. This one had been blasted, and you'll see on the top lip the wheel is actually rusted clean through. A wheel like this would certainly be unsafe to use on your vehicle today. In addition, there's a considerable amount of dents and damage from people hammering on it, trying to get it off, and it certainly wouldn't run true anymore as the center of the hub, aside from being broke, is actually bent inward. Now originally, a combat wheel had one other component to it that we don't use today at all, and that would be the bead separator. In this area, the combat wheel had another metal band with 2 flanges on it, the purpose of which was to crimp or lock the bead of the tire onto the wheel. The reason for that is that when the wheel would be completely flat and there was not time to change it in a combat condition, you could drive the Jeep with a flat tire, and by the means of this locking bead, it would not allow the tire to come off the wheel rim. So you could continue to drive in a flat tire for a considerable amount of time and not lose the tire itself. These are very difficult to get out today when they're in place. You can't use a tire changer on them because when you try to push the tire rim in, the bead lock is holding it in place, so you cannot compress the tire to get the bead to break through. Most of the time nowadays, what you're going to end up doing to get a wheel apart in that fashion is possibly cut the tire off itself and then cut the bead lock itself off. In modern replacement wheels, we do not put the bead lock back on. We simply use what's known as a tire flap, which is a heavy piece of rubber which goes through the center area and prevents the tube from trying to go up into the crack of the 2 sections of the wheel that go together. Another concept of this particular wheel, the ring itself oftentimes is very susceptible to rust. This particular ring, in addition to being seriously rusty, does not even show a valve stem hole any longer. Upon close inspection in the area down here, it appears that at some point in time someone had taken some rusted rings and actually cut them in sections and welded them back together to form a ring. But because normally the rust starts right around the valve stem hole, they didn't even have a good valve stem hole to put in here. How they were going to use this wheel, I don't know, without a valve stem hole, unless they planned on drilling one in, but in any event, it should not be used at all. It would definitely not be a safe wheel to weld segments into it, and in the rusted condition it is, try to use a wheel like this. At one time, combat replacement wheels were not available, but today, reproduction parts sellers now have brand new combat wheels, heavy steel, without the rust that you're talking about in a used wheel like that. There's no sense risking an unsafe wheel when you can have new reproduction wheels. Again, you'll see that the 8 bolts are in the wheel rim, the wheel nuts that hold the 2 pieces together, and one important feature which is rusted completely off most old wheels is the warning tag itself which is spot welded to both sides of the wheel, warning you not to take the wheel apart unless it's been completely deflated. Trying to take a combat wheel apart that's got tire pressure, air pressure in it would certainly be a dangerous condition. You'll see in this view the valve stem hole in its correct size, and as I mentioned, oftentimes when you're looking at used wheels that are rusted, this area is one of the first areas to start to go. Because the valve stem comes through here, water accumulates and the valve stem hole begins to enlarge itself or have jagged edges, which is going to flatten your tube. So now that new modern combat wheels are available reproduction, you definitely understand what you're looking at when you see one. Recognize a combat wheel as different from a normal automotive wheel. Treat it as such, and if your wheels are not in good condition or rusted like the ones we've shown you, you definitely want to purchase new combat wheels to be safe.